Good evening, and welcome to what is about as close to the news as you're going to get on the Smart Scarecrow Show. Reinstate the military draft? Now, I got to tell you that, back in the day, during the founding of the United States, back in the 1780s, when they were, they had 13 independent nations coming together to form a federal union. The idea of a standing army was feared. Okay? The states held unto themselves the right to maintain a militia. And the militia was defined as every male between 16 and 60 who was able to hold a firearm. The militia was expected to provide their own basic essentials. They had to have a firearm, a tomahawk or a sword. They had to have a bedroll. They had to be ready to go into the field on pretty much a moment's notice if called to arms by their governor. Now, the federal government was given the authority, if a state of war existed, to call up the state militia to serve the combined needs of the whole. The idea was the federal government was not supposed to have its own military force directly under its control. The military, such as it was expected to be under the control of the several states. Well, things kind of changed after the Great War of Northern Aggression back in the 1860s and early 1970s. Yeah, I guess it was still going on then. But, it was pretty much settled down by the 1870s. But, one of the things that persisted after the Great War of Northern Aggression was the idea that the federal government needed to maintain a standing army. And that has been the case ever since. Now, the idea of a military draft has been kind of an up and down issue for a long time. As a rule, the draft, basically the conscription of able-bodied manpower to serve in the military, has only really been instituted during times of war. About the first time we had what was referred to as a peacetime draft was during that period of time that I grew up in, during the 50s and 60s. No state of war existed between the United States and any nation in the world, but we still persisted in maintaining a draft, and young men were inducted into the military against their will to serve a 2-year and in some cases a 3.5, 4-year service in the military, whether they liked it or not. Now, if you were wealthy, or Mormon, or Jewish, or Catholic, you could arrange certain, religious deferments, like if, for example, if you were a Mormon missionary, like that guy who ran, I can't even remember the guy's name, who ran for president against Obama, what's his name? Does anybody even remember? Believe me, he will be back. But, you know, if you were a missionary doing missionary service, basically bar hopping in France, you know, you could get out of military service because you were doing service to God. Okay? So there were certain deferments allowed. So most of what got drafted during the period of the peacetime draft were young black men and poor whites. Okay? Let's get down to it. Let's call it what it was. When you look at the population of servicemen who served on the front lines during the Vietnam War, you find that they were overly represented by inner city blacks. Okay? Now, yeah, I know a lot of you guys out there go, well, I served in Vietnam and I was on the front line and I'm white or I'm Asian or whatever. Yeah, I'm not saying there weren't any whites and Asians that were out on the front lines. But, you know, when you figure that black people only represented about 10% of the U.S. population back in those days, and almost a third of our frontline military in Vietnam were poor inner city blacks, you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about, okay? The draft has never been about universal service. It has never been about honor and dignity. It has been all about putting together cannon fodder that you don't really care about, that you might just as well waste. Okay? Well, now, Representative Charlie Rangel, a Korean War veteran, by the way, has once again, okay, this bill's been, you know, introduced a number of times. He has once again introduced a bill to reinstate a peacetime draft. Now, technically, the United States is at peace right now. Yeah, I know it's kind of hard to tell with all the shooting we're doing, but technically, we have not declared war on it. We've declared war on a lot of adjectives. Let's see, we've declared war on poverty, we've declared war on drugs, we've declared war on something called terrorism that nobody yet has put a proper definition on. So, you know, we got all these wars against adjectives, but as far as a declared war against another nation, technically, the United States is at peace right now. But Charlie Rangel of New York, Democrat from New York, wants all Americans to serve their government. And when I say all, I mean all. For the first time ever, this proposal would also include women. So now, not only does our government wish to chew up and spit out our young men, they've kind of crossed an invisible line that was always maintained. We were always told that the reason we were going off to fight the war was to protect our home and our girlfriends, you know, the girls we left behind. Now, if Charlie Rangel has his way, you won't leave your girlfriend behind. She'll be in a foxhole carrying an M16 right next to you. Get used to it. It's a new trend. Another trend is surveillance cameras. You know, it seems like every time you turn around, there's some camera that's taking a picture of your license plate because you're going, 3 miles an hour over the limit or something, and then in the mail you get a ticket saying, well, you were spotted by our surveillance camera speeding through this intersection, and they got a picture of your smiling face driving in the car. So it was pretty hard to say, "I wasn't me." Yeah, right. Well, surveillance cameras are kind of a big thing. I mean, it's become a big industry. Everybody's got cameras. Every freaking building has cameras on it. Every freaking corner's got a camera on it. It's getting to be ridiculous. I mean, back in the day, you know, if you're driving down the road and you're 5 miles out of town and you just had to go, you know, you just had to go. You know, you pull off the side of the road, you find yourself some bushes, and you would relieve yourself, get back in your car, and go. I mean, you know, nobody talked about it, but, you know, everybody did it if they had to. You know, there's no big deal, you know. Nowadays, you better look around. There may be a camera in those bushes. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. Well, a story that, you know, kind of started in Germany has now become a global phenomena. Guerrilla surveillance camera destruction hits the U.S. It started in Berlin. Anarchists knows how they always give them a cool name, you know, so you immediately get the idea. Oh, these guys are bad. You know, they must be related to Osama. Donning black attire, hit the streets at night in pairs, small groups or alone to smash and dismantle. Closed-circuit TV surveillance cameras adorning the city streets. You know, when asked, aren't you just wasting taxpayers' money? Since the government will inevitably reinstall those cameras you take out. One of the vigilantes says, you know, isn't the government just wasting taxpayers' money, knowing full well, as soon as they install that new camera, we're going to take it down. You know, I like that story. I think I'm going to keep that one. Alrighty. In the wake of this horrible incident that happened, you know, there's this Sandy Hook thing. You know, there's been this, you know, drumbeat. You know, it's obvious that the government and some within the media have decided to use this Sandy Hook incident like a $2 hooker. Okay? And they've just jumped all over it and decided that, you know, this is their golden opportunity. You know, while everybody is all shocked about the fact that a bunch of kids got killed for absolutely no bloody reason. But that's neither here nor there. These people are so damned cynical that they will stand on the bloody bodies of children and use them for their agenda. And their agenda is to disarm you. They say they don't trust you with any kind of a weapon that even sort of kind of almost resembles military hardware. And New York has one of the most restrictive gun rules in the nation, and they have tightened it up even more. They have gotten absolutely absurd in New York. And it appears that Illinois and Chicago, or Illinois and California, are not far behind. Very restrictive gun rule. Matter of fact, apparently in New York, if you are caught with a 30-round magazine, this is no longer a, you know, take your magazine from you, slap you on the hand, and maybe fine you $50. This is now a jail time offense for having a high-capacity magazine that was considered perfectly normal, perfectly reasonable, and absolutely legal just a few months before. Well, not everybody is real happy about these new firearms restrictions. Ask the folks at LaRue Tactical. That's LARUE Tactical. Ask the folks at Olympic Arms. So that's OLYMPIC, Olympic Arms. Ask the folks at Extreme Firepower Inc. That's Extreme Firepower, Inc. Ask the folks at Templar Custom. Templar, T-E-M-P-L-A-R. Ask the folks at York Arms. These are all manufacturers of firearms and firearms-related products who have determined that they will enforce the letter of the law. If 30-round magazines and weapons that resemble military firearms are illegal for civilians to purchase in New York and California, those companies will also refuse to sell them to government agencies within those states. Because those firearms manufacturers, and I'm going to read the list one more time before I end this segment, those firearms manufacturers have made a decision that, a cop is a citizen on patrol. That's what cop means. Citizen on patrol. They're no more special than you. And frankly, under the law of the land, if they're allowed to have a certain type of firearm or a certain type of magazine, then you are allowed to have that same firearm or magazine. If you are denied, they too should be denied. So if by chance you happen to be in the market and you happen to live in a state that still permits, licenses, tolerates you having such a weapon, I'm about to read those names one more time. Any interested parties out there who might be wanting to do business with a responsible firearms company, please make note of these names and look them up before you go spend your money. At least give them a shot. LaRue Tactical. L-A-R-U-E. LaRue Tactical. Olympic Arms. O-L-Y-M-P-I-C Arms. Olympic Arms. By the way, those guys make a hell of a fine AR. They've got a really nice AR. Extreme Firepower. Extreme Firepower. That's E-X-T-R-E-M-E. For anybody out there who doesn't know how to spell extreme, that's Extreme Firepower. Templar Custom. T-E-M-P-L-A-R Custom. York Arms. York Arms. Look, if you're going to spend your money on a very expensive firearm anyway, now let's face it, a good AR, that is not a cheap firearm. You're going to lay down about $1,500 for the privilege of owning a firearm of that type. Might as well spend your money with a company that has some honor. What do you think when you hear the term immigration reform? Immigration reform. What do you think? Immigration reform. I mean, that's, it's kind of a benign term. It doesn't mean anything to me. Immigration reform. Immigration reform. Well, based on recent history since the Reagan period, immigration reform should immediately instill upon your mind the term invasion. Okay? Immigration reform. Invasion. Immigration reform. Invasion. Now see, when I say invasion, it somehow sounds not quite as pleasant as Immigration reform. So what you will hear coming out of administrations since Reagan, and look, you know, all you Republicrats and you Demopublicans out there, it don't matter. Okay? So, you know, you can point the finger at the blue team and point the finger at the red team all you want. But they both stink. Okay? You got a red wing and you got a blue wing on this same vulture, is what you're talking about. Reagan passed a bill during his administration to make about 7 million illegals all of a sudden magically legal with a snap of a finger. And he promised us, that's it. No more. From now on, we're getting tough on illegals crossing the border. You know, we're going to pack you up, we're going to send you right back. Yeah, we see how well that worked out, didn't we? Now, by some estimates, about 10, maybe 15% of the total U.S. population. We're talking maybe as many as 30 million. Some are saying it's only about 15. Still, a lot of people. The most pessimistic estimates are saying, you know, 30, maybe 35 million people in the United States are here illegally. Okay? By that, what it means is they put a backpack on their back, they walked across the border, and they set themselves up as a lawn care business, and they're probably cutting your grass. Okay? Immigration reform. It's high on the administration's agenda. Why do you suppose? I mean, these people have come into our country. They're absorbing our resources. They're taking jobs from our people. They're a drain on our economy. I don't buy all this nonsense about how they're paying into Social Security and how they're paying their fair share of taxes and all this other. I don't buy it, okay? Show me the data. What I see is that they're getting Section 8 housing vouchers, they're getting food stamps, they're getting free medical care, all on the taxpayer. They are a tremendous burden on a very weak, very fragile economy. But, gee, if all of a sudden they were legal and they could vote, do you think maybe they'd vote for the guy who gave them a little kiss on the cheek? Not to mention, there is a rather large Hispanic community here in the United States that would, some of whom have a few bucks. They might even give us some money. So, gee, do you suppose it might be all about politics and buying votes? As the demographics of the country change, as the national language is very swiftly changed from English to Spanish, or maybe even Farsi in some areas? Is that really what you voted for? Did you give them permission to do that? Did anybody even ask you? Or did they give you a warm and fuzzy phrase like immigration reform instead of telling you straight up, invasion? You not tired of being treated like a child? Wouldn't it be nice if you had politicians who look you in the eye and for just a minute tell you the truth? Yeah. Good luck with that. Ain't nobody got no time for that. An obscure reference that I'm sure nobody in the audience will be familiar with. But yeah, immigration reform, that's bullshit. Now, You can agree or disagree with my points of view. This was editorial commentary. I stated my opinion on these issues. Agree or disagree, as you see fit. But I hope I got you to at least consider those issues. Think about them. And by all means, make up your own damn mind.